Lauren Domagas. If you don't know already, I am a Filipino film writer who's trying her best to finish a book within the course of a year. This is my Tea Talk series, and this is really my opportunity to talk about things that are a little bit more topical, and it's an opportunity for me to go more in depth into all the things that are on my mind in terms of writing or everything else. One day I'd love to do like a Q&A on this, but you know, we'll save that. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about all things related to my novel. The thing that I realized about this, you and me, the camera, is that it's really hard to tell you about my book without revealing anything about my book. That's one of the biggest differences between like writing and any other type of like art that you show on video, is that I just can't ruin any of the secrets, because it's very important to me one day when this is published, and I know it in my heart that it is going to be, I still want you, the reader, to walk away from reading it with a sense of surprise, delight, as you would with any other novel that you've picked up for the very first time. That's why I have to hint at things in my vlog, but I wanted to take this opportunity in a tea talk to just give you the bits of information that I know is not going to spoil anything, and it'll kind of give you a handhold, a foothold, or whatever you call it, on my novel, and make it easier for you to understand as I'm talking about characters and some of the issues that I'm facing with them in my other series. So without further ado, let's just talk all things about my novel. It's a coming of age novel, so we meet these group of people that are on the precipice of adulthood, or they're in adulthood but still trying to figure things out. They're dealing with all these things of questions of like who they are and like what kind of people they want to become. The novel itself takes place in a coastal town, and more so within that coastal town, the majority of the novel takes place in this hostel that's been converted from an old lighthouse. There are elements of magical realism in this book. I'm still working out on how I want to best implement that. Generally speaking, magical realism is a subgenre of literature. Magical realism usually takes place in our real world, but there's underlying currents of magic in it. In my book, how the magic occurs is just like things kind of happen for a reason, and like you don't really know until the very end why things happen. It leads you down a certain path of self-discovery, so it's not necessarily really stated, but there's definitely strong elements of that kind of magic. Versus like Harry Potter is a really good example of fantastical magic. Like it's outwardly said, like there is a magic system there and like there are rules to follow. Hi everybody, Editing Lauren here. So before I launch into the next part of this video, I just wanted to take a quick opportunity to talk about some of the language that I use to describe my characters and the reasonings behind that, as well as the context behind that. In the next part of this video, you'll hear me talking about my characters, a little bit about their personality, what makes them interesting, how they interact with other characters in my book. And so one of the lines that I use to describe my characters is their race and sexual orientation. And so the reasoning why I decided to do that was because I wanted to avoid what a lot of readers, myself included growing up, have fallen into, and that is white assumption. And so basically white assumption means that when a character reads a book and the author doesn't explicitly say what their race is, then the reader will probably most likely assume that the race of the character is white. And that same idea can be applied to assuming that their sexual orientation is straight. The phenomenon behind white assumption is definitely understandable. I myself have done that many times growing up, just because that's the media landscape that I grew up in, which was basically being immersed in a media landscape of only seeing white faces and a lot of straight stories, and not seeing a lot of many other people being represented. Not to say that it's bad having white characters in your book. I definitely have white characters, but on top of that, I have many other racial backgrounds, religious backgrounds, and people of the LGBTQ community in my book. One way to get around white assumption is to be extremely explicit about your character's backgrounds. That's something that I definitely try to emulate in my book, and so that's basically it. I'm trying to emulate that same concept in this video so that you guys have an understanding of what my characters are, because it's gonna be a while before I publish my book.
and in the meantime I'm going to be referencing my characters throughout this entire journey, so at least in this video you have an understanding of what my character's racial background is. Diverse representation is something that I'm deeply passionate about. Of course, I'm not an expert on this. I'm continually trying to educate myself, but if you yourself have studied this and know even better ways to represent characters, please leave them in the comments below, give me tips. I really do value continually trying to educate myself and trying to be more diverse in my representation. But yeah, I'm extremely passionate about diverse representation, and hopefully not only this video is a chance for you guys to know my characters, but it's a chance for you to understand what I'm about as a writer. That's basically it. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. Without further ado, let's continue on to the next segment.
Okay, so let's get into the characters for the book. I have a couple, and I'm very, I don't know, I feel very close to my characters. They're very much real people to me, so when I talk about them, I'm like, they're my friends, I gotta hang with them, and they're I don't know, I just love my characters. Like I said, the majority of my cast of characters, 20-something-year-olds or on the verge of adulthood, and they are just really discovering things about themselves. So while the novel has a general overview of all of them, I would say that the novel definitely focuses in on my two main characters, Beatrice and Quentin. So both Beatrice and Quentin are Filipino Americans. I just was like, why not? I am a Filipino writer, and also just more representation for my heritage, and because that means a lot to me, and it gives me the opportunity to study more about Filipino history. And so I was like, I'm just gonna make both of my main characters Filipino. It's definitely been very exciting to write for them. In general, I'll go over the characters and a little bit of their backgrounds, what their names are, and I'm only telling you what they are as of right now. Of course, as I go into the novel more and hone in on more details, they're very much open to change. For the most part, I don't think that their personalities will change, but other aspects of them might. So Quentin is a heterosexual young man, and I would say his big thing is that he feels a little bit lost right now. He's definitely the character who doesn't know who he is yet, and he's really just trying to find out what he believes in. I will say this, that he's definitely more science oriented and sees the world in that way, and is very methodical. There's something very steady about Quentin. He's very much grounded, and even if he himself doesn't feel grounded, but that's why people gravitate towards him. Beatrice is a heterosexual young woman. Beatrice can be a little, not a firecracker, but she's definitely very friendly, very talkative. She's very quick-witted, sometimes a smartass, but you like her because of that. Art oriented, so she does a lot of collages. She just cares so much about people and is very generous with her heart. So the rest of the cast of the characters, I'll talk about. Most of them work at the hostel. Val is an African American lesbian woman. She is Beatrice's roommate, so they're very close with each other, and I think they balance each other out very well, because Val doesn't take shit from people for the most part, and she likes to read. She reads a lot of books. She does care a lot about her friends, but she just doesn't necessarily express that outwardly as much. So she can come across as very intimidating, but when she's around female women that she likes, then she gets very, very shy, which I think is the cutest thing about her. But she's a strong-minded person, which I really love about her. Next, onward to John. In my original Working Here With You episode, I wasn't sure what I wanted to name him. This character was named Isaac, but I changed it to John, and honestly I might change it again. So if you have any name suggestions, I'm definitely open to it. But John is a heterosexual white male. I'm not really sure what his background is yet, but if I would describe his personality, personality. He's definitely like, he just loves getting to know people and getting to know them deeply. He's very extroverted, and like he'll kind of like hug you, you know, like bear hug everybody that he meets. He acts as a little bit of the older brother of the group, so he's very easy to get along with. So moving onwards, now onto Sahit. Sahit and John are roommates, so they're very close with each other. They're really, really good friends. His background, he is an Indian heterosexual male. I think I'm gonna have his background as he was born in India but then immigrated to the US when he was young-ish, but he grew up in the Chicago area. He loves baseball, but he is a very like not necessarily soft-spoken person, but he's definitely always shows his sympathetic, empathetic side. He's a really good listener. He connects with Val, I think, on books, but I'm not sure yet. I think that's just some passing idea in my head. So onwards onto Nari. I'm not sure how I feel about this name. I might also change this name as well. Honestly, all of these names might change, but we'll see. So Nari is she's a bisexual Korean woman. I think that she was born in Korea and then immigrated to the US when she was a little bit older. She's a bartender at the town's local pub. I guess the whole thing is that everybody cares about people, but she cares about people, and she's slightly more talkative, and she's very open and honest about how she's feeling. So if there's one characteristic about her that I would say is that she's extremely communicative, and just wants to get everything out on the table. And then the last character that I want to talk about, and he's a very important character, his name is Clark. He is a Japanese heterosexual older man. He is the hostel keeper. So he's in charge of everybody except, I would say, Nari. And so he is all-seeing, bird's-eye perspective of people because he's very wise, and like the only thing I'll say about him is just he sees everything. Like he notices everything, and that ability helps him be a guiding hand towards all of the different characters. I guess in some ways like the father figure of them, the grandfather figure of them, but he personality wise he's kind of stoic, doesn't say everything that's on his mind, but you can definitely tell when he's thinking something, and you have to kind of ask him further of like what's on your mind, you know, until he'll like say it. He just wants to see everybody grow and reach their potential. So cheers, that is it. Those are all the characters that I have, and I just want to say a note about them in general that I am very proud of how diverse they are. I feel like they come from all different sorts of backgrounds. Diverse representation is definitely something that matters to me. That's always something that I want to see more of in Hollywood and in literature. I just want to do my part in that, and so I hope that I am, and you know, like the more that I find out about the world, the more that I learn, I want to implement that into my book. I just care a lot about these characters, and I'm happy that they're all from different backgrounds and they can take all those things and learn from each other. You know, I feel like that's the basis of what it means to grow, is just learning from people that are vastly different from you. But that is basically it for this tea talk. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that it gives you a better idea of what my novel is about, and that these characters that are so very clear in my head are actually now clear to you. So if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.